people who put on this annual Old Home Week here in the town of Phillips, of which this is the 16th annual, always do things right. And one of the most interesting things, and I shouldn't call it a thing, but one of the most interesting bits that are going to happen in this 16th annual today is on the recording that you're going to hear from this point on, because at the moment I am seated in the historical building with the only three, to the best of my knowledge, the only three remaining members of the old streak of rust on the right-of-way. That identifies the Sandy River and the Ranger Lake Railroad. Now, you're going to meet them right now. I'm going to start over here to the right because I know this gentleman, and your name is?
Hershel Boynton.
Okay, Hirsch, how old are you?
86.
And how long were you with the railroad?
30 years.
30 years. And right across the way, I've met this man before, but already we'll let him identify himself, and your name is?
Clifford Cushman.
And Cliff, how old are you?
I'm the 82 to 27.
Just a youngster compared to our friend here.
That's right.
And how long were you with the railroad?
I worked from 1908 to 1923.
That was a couple of years. And over here, the left, we have Andrew Aldrich. Andy, what did you do with the old SNRL?
I was a brakeman.
You was a brakeman. So we have a brakeman. What were you, Hersh?
Engineer.
I figured you were an engineer. And what was you? You
was a brakeman.
So we got two brakemen and an engineer. Okay, because you have the seniority of your 85 years here, Hersh. Some questions I want to be answered because I know there's a lot of people listening in that would like to know more about the old SL&R because it was one of the real achievements of this area, and it brought so much happiness and so much prosperity up here into this country. I never knew, and I'm going to ask you, and maybe you can't even give me the answer, but I'm going to ask you just the same. Who owned the Sandy River and Ranger Lake? Where did the money come from?
Well, I think a lot of it comes from bonds, stock. I remember.
Yeah, but who engineered it? Give me some names if you remember them. Where did they live? Either one of you gentlemen remember?
Weston Lewis and Josiah Maxer were the two that run it while I was working on it.
And where did they live, Hersh?
Gardner.
They lived in Gardner.
Bankers.
Now, where did the line start from? Who wants to answer that question? Where did the line? I mean, when they started to construct it.
Well, in Farmington and worked towards Phillips. And each town was supposed to give so much money when they arrived there, if they arrived on such a date. And the road was really started by a man, as I remember it, recalled by the name of Farmer.
Farmer?
Yes, from the town of Phillips.
And he was a man that got the whole thing going.
Each town, like Strong and Phillips, they promised them so much money when they got the track laid there. But Phillips was a little different than the rest of them, because Phillips started the day that they'd have to be there or they'd lose the money. They wouldn't get it.
Okay, now let's follow that thinking up, Mr. Aldrich. Was the SRNRL built on time? Meaning by that the contractor and the towns adding up their share and all that sort of thing. Did they falter at any time?
I don't believe it. Never heard that they did, except they had one session that they had 4 run and went on a strike.
They had, what was that you said they had?
4 run. They got here on time. They completed on time. They completed on time. They worked the whole town turned out, according to the report. They worked all night, and they had fires going to keep them warm, melt, snow, shovel, and everything else. But they got on time.
Okay, back to you, Hersh, because you were pulling the throttle. Now let's go. We've got the thing started at Farmington, and we've come up, according to our friend Mr. Aldrich, to Strong and to Phillips. Just where did the line go? I know it went up as far as Bigelow. Name all the towns where it went, please. Starting with Farmington.
Well, no, they went down to Strong. Strong to Freeman, Summit, Salem, Winfield, Calabasas, and Bigelow.
Well, how did we get up through here?
Come from Strong up through to Phillips, Reddington, into Railroad.
Well, now, am I, maybe I'm off base here, but wasn't there a line, Mr. Cushman and Mr. Aldrich, that went over to pick up some lumber over what is now Dallas?
Yes, but that wasn't built until after the San River was. That was called the P&R, Phillips and Ranger.
Oh, in other words, we're now involved with two railroads.
Yes, you're involved in two. You've got the San River, the Franklin Mechanics, and the Phillips Ranger.
Okay, Franklin Mechanics, that's one I never heard of. Tell me all about that one. Where did it start? Where did it end?
Well, you asked Mr. Boynton.
Mr. Hershel Boynton, the question is referred to you.
Started at Strong, went to Salem Kingfield, and a few years after that in the Calabasas, 1900, they went into Bigelow, 6 miles beyond. That was known as the Franklin Mechanics at that time.
Now, whose money was that?
That was,
Why don't you know? You know, Mr.
I
Cushman?
don't know, there's a bond, after the bond, they get saying that they have it to the road. There's a bondage.
Bond issues built the road. Okay, now we've got the
known as the Franklin and Mechanics.
Franklin and Mechanic, and that went from Kingfield to Bigelow.
Strong into Bigelow.
Now, what did you haul mainly? Well, let's start up the top now. Let's start up at the top from Bigelow. What were you hauling mostly from Bigelow south?
Lumber.
Just lumber.
Yeah.
Long lumber or pulpwood?
Mostly long lumber in the first, and then they just did the pulp along the line, picked up a lot in different places, Calabasas, Houston, Brook, and Kingfield down through. And afterwards, it was all pulpwood.
Now, in those days, that was mostly poplar too, wasn't it? Today, they haul anything that they can get into a truck, goes into the pile over Oxford paper or SD Warren or somebody like that. But in those days, it was mostly poplar or aspen, I believe it is, in other parts of the country.
They had a big sawmill in Bigelow, run by two men from Vermont, Prouty and Miller.
Prouty and Miller, I remember that name.
Prouty furnished the money, as I understood it, and Miller had the operation end of it.
Okay, now, in the...
From 1911, they pulled out around about 1915.
Okay, over here to you, Mr. Cushman and Mr. Aldrich, because you were the brakeman. He was up where it was warm in the wintertime. At least one side of him was warm, and probably the other side was freezing. But as brakeman in the wintertime, when it was real cold and there was some frost on the iron, I've heard that expression many times, frost on the iron, and you came down around some of these curves, did you ever maybe put your hands up to the sky and say, "Dear God"?
Never but once in my whole...
And when did that happen?
Well, it happened with my father. He was the oldest engineer on the San River.
Yeah, but I mean, what part on the line did it
It
happen?
was going down over Strong Mountain. And we missed the big tree that we usually went by because the snow was going so. And we had the snowplow on the head end of number 10. And we made the trip from Phillips to Farmington in 21 minutes. And that was the only time that
You were looking for that little angel.
I want you to know I was, and so was my father, because he told me so when we got to Farmington.
Well, it was honest about it. How about you there, Mr. Cushman? Have you got an experience like that?
Well, I had one after coming down Sluice Hill. I was on the Rangeley Pike.
Now, Sluice Hill. Let's identify that for people listening in.
That's about the Salem Junction. That's north of Phillips, yeah. And that was frosty. And freezing a little night. And we got to going pretty good down through there. But we landed Salem Junction right side up. But there was times there I didn't know whether I was going to land at Salem Junction or whether I was going to land down in the woods somewhere.
Okay, I'm sure that our present-day listeners would have a question something like this.
Come out a bit time and I forget how many cars that coming down mud shot into his basket. He got an awful start there. For some reason, I couldn't imagine what the trouble was. Got down in the basket and I found there I hadn't been cut in. All the breaking I had was on the engine.
Well, tell me now. Go ahead.
Still going tied up for all the murder.
Listen, now, this is something that is going to be of tremendous interest to our people listening in. I'm going to ask the same question of all three of you. First, because of your seniority on the line and the fact that you were an engineer, what was the top pay that you ever made?
$3.85 for 8 hours.
And was it 8 hours, or was 8 hours going to 9 and 9, and depending upon where you were?
But we were getting overtime, over 8 hours.
But the only union that you knew, you were wearing next to your skin, a union suit, right? There were no unions in those.
No, we belonged to Brotherhood.
Did you really?
Yeah, engineers. Locomotive engineers.
Say that again, $3 and what?
$3.85.
How about you, Mr. Cushman?
I got $1.85 for 8 hours.
Mr. Aldrich.
Well, I happen to be real lucky. I got $3 for 8 hours.
But you came a little after the time of Mr. Aldrich.
I was, boy, Mr. Boynton over there was a regular father to me when I first time went over on the afternoon there for 1 minute. Hadn't been for it, and the rest of the Kingfield boys didn't know what it done.
Well, now,
That's a bunch of railroad men I ever worked with.
would you say that again? Because I used to work on the Southern Pacific, believe it or not, out in California, and there were a bunch of pretty gosh darn good men.
You won't find better men ever worked anywhere than they worked on the Sandy River Railroad.
To me, they took a lot of pride. Apparently all of you gentlemen took a lot of pride in the fact that people who were always poking fun at you, or not at you necessarily, but at your railroad, but you took a lot of pride, and you still have it today. I can tell just by talking with you. As you fellas say you are, well, listen, let me ask you another question. When did they pull the last spike and take up the last rail? Do you remember, Hersh?
1936.
1936.
They ceased operations in June 29, 1935. But they didn't take up the iron until the next summer.
Well, anyway,
We got an engineer here from the Rutland Railroad out of Burlington.
yeah, you'll have to get him in a hurry because I'm going to have to bring this to a close.
You're wanted on this.
And this, you're going to have to hurry, young man, here, because I can see you're much younger than me, so my name is Lynn Wilson, KTJ Radio, and you are who? Bob Jones. Bob Jones, that's a difficult name to remember. You don't play for Notre Dame because they have Skavinsky's and so on out there. What is your particular reason for being here today, Bob?
Well, I have just finished the manuscript on the Sandy River and Ranger Lakes Railroad, and come over several times a year just to visit.
Well, I think that is wonderful, and it's a nice place to visit, too, isn't it?
It sure is. This is
Now, you are many years behind these gentlemen here, but I'll bet you get a kick out of just talking to them, same as I'm doing right at this moment, don't you, Bob?
yeah, I sure do.
Well, gentlemen, I'm sorry that we are slowly running out of tape here, but to you, Hershel Boynton, and to you, Bob Jones from up in the Rutland Road, and to you, Mr. Cushman, and to you, my friend, Mr. Aldrich, and say hello to your brother Oscar, who played a lot of baseball with me and against me both. Congratulations to you all for having been able to work for the Sandy River and Ranger Lake, even for $1.85 a day for 9 hours.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen, very much.
Half when we first started.
Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen, from the historical building, as it happened just prior to the parade. And gentlemen, once again, many thanks.